who I haven't met, I'm Dr. Megan. Welcome, Brittany. So if you were to, let's say, Barb, go across our country on a road trip and you had this much tread left on your tire, when would you want to know about that, Ryan? Yeah. Or you, right? I just did a road trip. Yeah, I'd want to know immediately. Or let's say, Dustin, if money was leaking out of your bank account or you were overpaying on a bill, when would you want to find that problem and fix it?
Immediately.
Immediately, because it's your money. Or more importantly, Brent, if there is a disease process going on in your body, maybe causing symptoms you're feeling, possibly even things going on the inside that you're not feeling, robbing how life is flowing to all your organs and tissues and cells, when would you want to find that problem and fix it? Immediately. And so the reason you guys are sitting here, patients, is because I found damage in your spinal nerve system. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wasting our time right now. And it is going to get worse if left uncorrected. And I don't want to see you guys go down that same road, Carol, that many of you might have already been down, or that of your family members, leading to more drugs and more surgery. And so your problems are correctable, Ryan. They are reversible to a point. And so tonight is going to be a 1-hour crash course on what's causing your problem, how to read your x-rays, and most importantly, how to fix the issue without dangerous drugs or medications. Okay? Sound good?
Or surgery?
Or surgery.
Okay.
That's the goal, absolutely. So I want you guys to stand up for me. Making you work? Dang. So stay standing if you or someone you know, Brittany, a family member, a coworker, Barb, someone you know or you've heard of, or a family member, or you yourselves personally, has ever been diagnosed with or experienced any type of heart disease or cancer, sit down if you've not been affected or you don't know anyone with that. So I thought, so look around. I'm standing myself. And so heart disease and cancer kill more people than anything. 5 out of 6 Americans, Carol, are dying from that. And so my question, if these diseases are so deadly, how's it not going to be you? And how's it not going to be your son, which I appreciate you saying today. Because the reality, Barb, it is going to be us. Right? It is going to be the next generation. And the number one thing that probably breaks my heart more, first of all, as someone who deals with a lot of people, but then even with people in my own family, just that mindset that, Brent, is not going to be me. Because it is going to be you. Right? And the number one thing not to do, Ryan, what everybody else in our country is doing to prevent these 2 diseases. Okay, so go ahead and sit down. So tonight we're going to talk about a few things. Number one, why are these diseases so deadly and how it's affecting more people than any disease known to man. All right, and so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the top killer in our country, which is not a disease. And we're going to talk about subluxation and how that affects the top 2 killers, which is heart disease and cancer, and the top killer, which is actually drugs or medication. We're actually going to talk about how subluxation impacts not only your potential, but overall how your body expresses life at a cell level. And so with heart disease and cancer, we mentioned killing more people than anything, Carol. When it comes to health, which is arguably, right, it is your greatest asset, Brenda. You're shaking your head.
Yes.
What do most people base their health on? How we what? How we look. If I work out a couple times a week, Dustin, if I can run a marathon, or if I eat organic, if I drink enough water, if I look good, or if I feel good. But do you think people with heart attacks wake up one night and be like, I think I'm gonna have a heart attack?
No.
They call it the silent what? The silent killer. Not because you have a warning. When you get that lumps and tingling, you get that chest pain, you get that shortness of breath, that is the heart attack. It's not a sign of a heart attack. It's not going to come, it is here. Okay, and so are more people dying in our country? I don't want to live anywhere else, Carl, but are more people in the best country in the world dying of things we feel, or dying of things we don't feel? Yet we're educated to live a life basing our health on how we look or how we feel. These look familiar, right? What they died from. So they said, by the time they actually had the diagnosis, that in years prior, 30 years prior, they already had the cancer in these pictures. And here's the thing, Brian, they had the best insurance, they had their own doctors, they got paid to look a certain way. They exercised, they had their own trainers, they had their own chefs, Meg. they got paid to look a certain way, they felt a certain way, but the reality is, listen, disease does not care what your bank account says. Disease doesn't care, you know, what your job or your profession. Disease doesn't care how old you are. Disease does not care, right? And so here's the thing, if we can open up America's blind spots, and if I can open up your blind spots, there's got to be blind spots when it comes to what our greatest asset is. Because if everyone just wanted to be healthy, well, wanting to be healthy is not good enough, right? Because then everyone would be healthy. But we're going to talk about the diseases that are killing people in your family. We all were standing, all right? In my family as well. And if we can understand those blind spots that, you know, get people off guard and trap people, you know, if we can understand, you know, how that even develops in the first place, then you're going to be able to make decisions based on wisdom and knowledge and understanding for your best asset, for you and that of your family members, Barb, not based on just what we're taught to do, but more importantly, based on understanding how this even works. Does that sound good? So we said heart disease and cancers is actually the second and third cause of death in our country, which 5 out of 6 people, that's a heck of a lot of people. Not good at math, Brenda, that's it's almost 100%.
Almost, yeah.
That's not good.
No.
And so here's the reality. You want to be a 5 out of 6, or you want to be a 1 out of 6? You want your daughter to be a 1 out of 6 mom or a 5 out of 6 like everybody else? Well, we got to do something different. You can't do what we're doing already, what you've been taught to do. And so more than any sickness and more than any disease, and this is what's interesting too, when you start to have the symptoms, right? So many of you guys, you already have the symptoms, whether it's back pain, right? Whether it's sciatica, whether it's numbness and tingling, whether it's migraines, whether it's insomnia, whatever symptoms that maybe brought you into the office, Ken, you're tired of feeling that way, right? That's why you're even here. That's why you're like, you know what, even if I'm just curious, like, what's going on? And so the reality is you start to get these symptoms, you go to your doctor, and really you're given 2 things. Because the reality, it is affecting your work, it's affecting your relationships, so the ability to, you know, relate to my spouse, go down. I feel my productivity going down, I feel like I'm not sleeping as well, so I'm not waking up rested. And then so you go to your doctor, you're given 2 options. What are they? Drugs to cover it up, or a surgery, Brenda, because it's so far gone, right? And so the reality, you know, symptoms are definitely something, Ryan, you don't want to ignore that. And so many times I deal with people that are like, well, I just kind of learned to live with it, just have it for the last 20 years. And you might have learned to live with it, but the reality, symptoms are something you want to honor, Brittany, but it's never something you want to ignore. So even when it comes to your greatest asset, who's in charge of that?
We are.
Aria? This is Beth, and this is her 4 kids. The youngest daughter I just adjusted on Friday. This is about 10 years ago. Beth brought her 4 kids into the office, her and her husband. Who's in charge? Miana, she was about 3 and a half at the time that we did her exam. Who was in charge of Miana, the 3.5-year-old? Who's in charge of her health? Was it Beth? Were they? Who put? The doctor was. If we're not careful, or you're exactly right, if we're not careful, knowingly, Dustin, or unknowingly, we go through life, right? We just do what we're taught to do, and we're do what we're told to do because we trust certain doctors in certain areas of our life. But the reality is you pass that greatest asset, Ryan, into the hands of somebody or something else, right? And you're like, and then you wonder why we're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and we're taking that. That's us, right? Good grief. So what I mean by that is, I've seen your list, Brenda.
Exactly.
And so what I mean by that is, you know, once again, is regaining control of that. So instead of just being like, well, my doctor just told me to, well, what is this medication? I don't know, it's just something I've been taught I had to take, or told I had to take, or I only do what my insurance covers because they have my best interest in mind. Trust me, they don't, right? I'm only gonna do what my insurance says, or I'm only gonna do what the pharmaceutical company says. If you can start regaining control of your greatest asset again, by the way, this is one of 2 bags that Beth brought in, because we started getting down to the root cause of why is Miana not functioning? Why can't she breathe at night? Why is she on 3 different medications just to help her sleep, to get her off allergies, and so she can breathe? A 3.5-year-old. Yet when I adjust her, she's already had surgery. Literally, when she first came in, she had some issues with her heart when she was born, so she has a scar. When I adjust her on Friday, I could see, you know, she has a little scoop neck t-shirt, scar from here all the way almost down to her navel at 3.5 when she first started. something's not right. There's a mess up in the system, and if we keep going on that route, we know that one drug leads to more drugs, Carol, leads to more drugs, and then we pretty soon have a snowball effect, and we're like, man, I'm only 37 years old. How the heck did I even get this, right? And so the number one cause of death in our country is not a disease. It's actually a study called Death by Medicine, where PhDs and MDs did a study that said the number one cause of death in our country was prescription drugs and hospital errors. The number one cause of death, 999,936 people, Barb, died last year. Let me do the simple math. Round it to the nearest 100, it's 1 million people last year died from this. Well, how does it make you feel, Brenda, when, you know,
Scary.
in the last 30 days, maybe we've taken something, or I have 4 kids at home. If I don't know any better, I just give them a something for whatever, a little fever, when we're taught to do that, but statistically that is the worst thing we could do. Well, how does it make you feel? Does it get you a little fired up? You're like, no one's ever, what I'm taught to do is the worst thing I could possibly do. Okay? And so health isn't how we look or how we feel, but according to the World Health Organization, health is 100% function of your body, right? Mentally, physically, socially, and spiritually, not simply an absence of a sickness or disease. So if health is 100% function, what controls the function of our body? And this honestly is why I love what I do, because I don't have to worry about what drug and side effects on malpractice, and I don't have to worry about that. You have to get down to the basics of how God created your body to heal and function, Barb. When you understand how this even works and how it's set up in the first place, right, you will start to take on a wisdom, and you're going to basically start to make health decisions for you, and even from this point forward, Brenda, maybe the past is the past, all the surgeries, Carol, that's in the past, but from this point forward, man, I understand how my body is designed to heal. I understand how sickness develops. I understand why people are taking medications. I understand why the top 3 killers are heart disease, drugs, and heart disease, cancer, and drugs. But drugs are the number one, right? So, but if we understand why is that such an epidemic, right, you're going to be the one out of 6. So, what is the one thing, going back to my question, what's the one thing that runs your body? No. So what did God, God put life in your brain, right? And so, sorry, I put you on the spot. That's not fair to me, is it? You probably had a long day. Yeah, God put life in the brain, Carol. And so can we all come to the understanding and agreement, 100% life flows from your brain, has to get down to every cell in your body, right? So for your heart to beat, for your hormones to be exactly right, for your body chemistry, for you to eat an ice cream cone, which I plan on doing tonight. Not kidding. I only have a certain number of days before our little dairy bar closes. I'm excited about that bar. But for when you eat an ice cream cone, or you eat a hamburger, or you eat a piece of chicken, for your insulin to kick out the perfect amount of insulin, or for your pancreas, I should say, to kick out the perfect amount of insulin to bring your blood sugar down to actually save your life, right? How does your body even know how to, what keeps you alive when you're sleeping? What makes a baby grow, right? There's an intelligence and a wisdom, it's called innate intelligence, Mr. Ken, that's put in your brain at conception that has to run everything. And I'll prove it to you. If I cut off the head, what happens to the body?
Dies.
That would not be funny, Carol. It's obvious, right? The body dies. And so the reality is that a belief or is that a fact? So is that a theory or a law? It's a law, right? And is the law being disconnected and interfered with? The law is life. And anything that interferes with life, right, you have the opposite of that, okay? So theories just come and go. And so a lot of times when I do talks, you guys came in from the library, a lot of times when I do public speaking or out of this office, when I come across people that hear that I'm a chiropractor, and they're like, well, I just don't believe in chiropractic. That's interesting because what we're talking about, Ryan, is not even a chiropractic thing, right? This is 100% law of life. Every time if I cut off the head, it's not a belief system, it's a fact. Person dies, right? Let's say if I cut the nerve that goes to the heart, is the heart work better or worse? So let's say I don't cut the nerve, Carol, but let's say I irritate that nerve, or I stretch that nerve, or I have a little bit of irritation or pinching of that nerve. Is the heart going to function better or worse? Maybe, or all the time? All the time. absolutely. And so that's why chiropractors look to the spine. And so if there's an interference on how your brain is talking life to your body, does the body get sicker or healthier? Dustin? Sicker, absolutely, all the time. And so the reason why chiropractors focus so much attention, and that's why tonight is basically like an x-ray class. You have to know what your x-rays show. Because when it comes to your health, this is the best way to see how is your brain communicating life to your body. So for your prostate to do its job, for your stomach to do its job, for your ovaries to do its job, for your thyroid to do its job, for your eyeball to do its job, for your kneecap to do its job, right? Your life, your brain has to communicate signals 100% of the time. Not sometimes, not on good days, all the time, okay? And so when we're looking at your x-rays, let me step back. When we're looking at your spine, when you're looking at a spine from front to back, Barbie needs to be straight up and down. That's why when we looked at her posture, we're looking at head needs to be on straight, your shoulders need to be level, and your hips need to be level. When you're looking at it from the side, Miss Carol, that's when it has all the curves in it. This is the back of the skull, person's facing this way. So there's three main things we're looking at when it comes to how your body runs. We always start the neck first. Why do we start the neck? Because this houses the brainstem. We have to make sure, even if a person, Ryan, comes in with lower back pain, or let's say Glenn with prostate cancer, they wanted to hollow out his prostate. He's like, I don't really want to go that route. I'm like, I don't even have one. I wouldn't want to go that route either, to make sure that your body's functioning right. So even with Glenn, the first thing I always look at is the top bone, the top part of the neck. Why? I'll tell you why. There's three things. The first thing we're looking at is the side view of the neck. You need to have a banana curve, okay? This is what neurologists, Megan, call the arc of life. Heard of it? Maybe. I know you've done a lot of research. You're a smart cookie. So that arc of life, the reason neurologists call this, Dustin, the arc of life is because the brain sits up here. That's how it exits the skull. It's shaped like a banana, okay? So anytime anybody past crawling age, you got babies, Brittany? Okay, so
Not anymore, but yeah.
they're all grown?
Not really. Probably, but
Getting there anyway, right?
past the crawling stage.
Got it. When they crawl, that's when you get that curve in that neck. Okay, so when a baby comes out like a C-shaped curve, right? Fetal position, when they crawl, that's why it's important, parents, to let babies crawl. Grandparents, let babies crawl. Okay? Because that's what develops the secondary curve. So the reason we need to have that banana curve, there's going to be a red line on your x-ray, guys, where that spine needs to be at. It's a 43-degree arc, Brenda. Okay, you're walking. Still. Thank God.
Good, yeah.
We need to have that banana curve. There's a red line on your x-ray where that spine needs to be at. There's a black dotted line on your x-ray where your spine is at. Those two lines should be lined up. Well, why? What if this is me? Well, let me ask you, what happens when you straighten a banana?
Nice.
So what happens at the inside? It mushes. So what happens, if this is normal, nice relaxed spinal cord, Barb, and we straighten that out, the bony part of your spine shoves up against that spinal cord, Ryan, and now neurologists call that pathological tension. What does that mean? So if you get a pathological report back from the hospital, what are they looking for? Well, some sort of disease cell, right? So they're looking for like cancer, they're looking for, white blood cells, they're looking for something. So pathological tension means there's so much tension on your nerve system that is literally causing disease somewhere in your body. Somewhere. Because you decrease how your brain talks life, does the body get healthier or sicker? Sometimes or all the time? All the time. So the interesting thing, Dustin, with this is that a lot of times I don't feel it. You don't have to feel subluxation, okay? Subluxation is when the spine is misaligned to the point where it's actually crushing life at that nerve level. That's what a subluxation is, okay? So a spine can be misaligned, like in the case of a scoliosis, doesn't necessarily mean in scoliosis, or if you lose, or if you have a misaligned spine, doesn't always mean that it's affecting nerve function, because your body's amazing at adapting, okay? But if it's misaligned to the point where it's actually crushing life off at the nerve level, that's when it starts getting real, okay? And so when we look at that side view of the neck, we have to see a curve. We have to see that, because there's a reason why neurologists call that pathological tension. So regardless, Brenda, whether I get neck pain every day, or I have migraines, or maybe I just get a little bit of insomnia, because the top bone of your neck controls how you sleep. It controls body chemistry, it controls hormone production. It controls how you think and process and perceive life. Brainstem controls that, all right? So a lot of times our minds go, well, if I have a pinched nerve, if I have nerve damage, that's my headache, that's my back pain. It could be. More importantly, what is it, how is it affecting everything else? I'm not worried about your neck pain. I'm not worried about your headaches.
Stressing you out.
It's shutting life off. So that, yes, I am concerned about it. I don't want to sound like I'm not worried about you. The reality is there's something bigger at stake that could potentially go way wrong, okay? And so if we can get down to the root cause of that and fix it, what's going to then happen to everything else?
It'll work properly.
You want to wait till you have the diagnosis with cancer, or you want to start adjusting your lifestyle, making sure your nerves are functioning before it even develops? Well, yeah, obviously prevention's better, absolutely. So going back to your x-ray, that's the first thing we look at. The worst condition that I've ever seen in this office is not a person with terminal cancer, because I've had many, to the point where it even metastasized in the spine. It's not a condition like terminal cancer. In fact, the worst condition I've ever seen is when the spine's actually reversed. This is a reversed lordosis. And the reason neurologists call this pathological tension, but they say it's so damaging to the spinal cord and to the nerves at that level that it actually takes upwards of 14 years of, they say, potential life lost. What does that mean? Well, say it slow. That means it shortens life expectancy by up to 14 years. Why do I say that? There's a couple things that happen when the spine's not even straight up and down, but it actually reverses. Carol, the reason they say that is because a couple things happen. Number one, you're squeezing that spinal cord, okay? So instead of like, this is the cross section of so this is looking down your spinal cord. Whoa, that was close. This is the bone and this is the spinal cord, so it's nice and fat. This is if you picture like a fire hose, right? Like giving life everywhere, okay? Nice and fat. When you start to lose the curve of the spine, this is what happens to the spinal cord. So that's not a good thing. Agreed?
Agreed.
Is this life or death?
That's bad.
Maybe or all the time?
All the time.
All the time.
That's right.
And the reason they say it takes upwards of 14 years of potential life loss is because when you have a spinal cord like this, life is still flowing. If I put a stethoscope up to your heart, right, I can still hear heartbeat, but your heart's not going to adapt the way it should. Okay, your liver's not going to adapt the way it should. Your immune system's not going to adapt the way it should. Your hormone system's not going to adapt the way it should. Okay, and so they say this is why. Number two reason is because it stretches the nerves that go the base of your neck. Like those are the nerves. So those of us with neck pain, it's not about the tight traps and the neck pain that you occasionally get, or the stiffness and the range of motion. More importantly, those are the nerves that go down the arms. Most importantly, they run to your heart and lungs, called the brachial plexus. You think I care more about your neck pain, the fact that this makes your heart beat. So with 5 out of 6 people dying from heart disease or cancer, you think you want to make sure that those nerves are healthy. Now, I'm not saying lifestyle has a ton to do with it. But studies show that 80% of heart disease is based on 2 things. Number 1 is nerve supply, and number 2 is lifestyle. Okay? So that's why we do our lifestyle classes. That's why you got to make sure you exercise. You got to make sure you eat right. But I can eat organic and run marathons, which I used to be part of a group in college. They literally, a group of ladies, we called the Spartanburg Running Club. They literally, their goal was to run 1 marathon every month. Okay, and I was a part of that. However, that's a lot. That's 26.2 miles every month, let alone the training, let alone everything else. So after I graduated, 9 months later, I got married. I invited about 4 or 5 of the ladies back, 2 of which, one actually passed away within that 9 months, and the other lady, she got diagnosed with some sort of breast cancer that metastasized, so she didn't make it back to the wedding within 9 months. And so if exercise was simply the key to get healthy, it didn't work for them, okay? And so those are the nerves, again, when you have a reverse curve, that stretches that go to the heart and lungs, but then also it pinches that brainstem. Okay, and so we said that brainstem runs everything. So you have 70 trillion cells in your body. The average adult, 70 trillion cells, and they're all under the control of the brainstem. Okay, so you want all those cells working the way they're supposed to, what they're created to do. But the brainstem has to control that. Okay, so are we clear on what the number one thing we're looking at is the arc? The second thing is if you have any arthritis or degeneration, it just means you've had that loss of curve for a long, long time. Arthritis never kills anybody, ever, ever. Okay? People get arthritis because you've had abnormal wear and tear for decades. Healthy joints, Ryan, don't rot. Joints that have abnormal wear and tear, yeah, they're going to start to wear away. They're going to start to decay. So my point of saying that is if we can see evidence of that on your x-ray, then just realize, let's be realistic, the problem's been there for decades at that point. It didn't happen overnight. Okay? And so again, it's not the arthritis, it just shows you that, hey, that's how long the problem's been there. So most of the times when people come in, by the time your symptoms have alerted you enough, like the fire alarm, by the time it's alerted you enough, Dustin, to actually finally do something about it, usually the problem's been there for a while, like years, if not decades, okay? And so that's the second thing is any arthritis besides the curve, and then the top thing is that brain. Atlas, protects the brain stem. The top bone of your neck is called your atlas. Say atlas. There's going to be a line drawn on that atlas on your top bone of your neck, Megan, and this is the one that protects your brainstem. Okay, so it needs to be, when we have a nice curve, Ryan, that atlas needs to be 31 degrees. Okay, so if let's say I lose that curve, well, how do I lose that curve? Well, do you text? Well, do you study? Say yes. She's a student. She has to. I believe it. I believe that. And so I love to read, so I don't do it often, but I do this. I have a job, and I've been adjusted literally my entire life. I'm a second-generation chiropractor, so we always got checked, thankfully, growing up. Okay, and so not because we hurt, not because we had issues all the time. Sometimes we did. We were kids. We worked on a farm. Like we lived on a farm. We were the average kid. Okay, but my dad always checked us not because we had issues or symptoms. My dad always checked us because he wanted to make sure that our bodies are growing, that it's healing, that it's doing its job before the symptoms even show up. Okay, so I got checked at least once a week my entire life, Ryan. Not everybody needs that. But I have a job, in spite of getting adjusted my entire life, or at least checked, I have a job where I'm bent over like this. We have a farm, we bale hay, so we do a lot during the summer primarily. We do a lot, okay? And I have 4 kids, and I love to work out, and did you tell? Just kidding. Totally kidding. That was weird. But I probably don't have the best posture when I'm doing that, okay? And so in spite of all that, we need to make sure that your body is functioning the way it should be, okay? And so obviously we want to make sure when we look at your x-rays that you know exactly what we're looking at. So any questions so far? No? Okay. This is an x-ray, this is a cadaver. Person's facing this way, this is the back of the skull, okay? So this is the brain, Megan, brainstem, and spinal cord. This is a nice banana curve, okay? This is what your x-ray would want it to look like. Now I don't have the lines drawn on this, but I'm going to show you examples of that in just a minute, okay? So other than the fact that he's dead, he looks pretty darn good, all right? Phase 1 subluxation, whether it's you have a job where you're bent over, or you wear a helmet, or you're a student. I have 4 students now in school. Kind of sad, all my kids are in school. Okay, so now their neck's like this. And we didn't have tablets growing up. But I know my oldest daughter, she loves to read, and so her nose is always in the book. Okay, or you got a whiplash injury, or you fell off your bike as a kid, or you slept goofy on the couch, or you sleep on your stomach, now your neck's twisted every night. Okay, there's a lot of different ways that we can lose the proper curves of the spine. Okay, and normally, Carol, it's little things that we do every day. It's not like I fell off a forklift, I got in a massive accident, I fell out of a tree. It's usually the little things that we do every day, the bad posture, the slouching. Show me a posture of a kid with a backpack, like this. Show me a posture of somebody, my mother-in-law sits and plays on her tablet all day long. So it's like this, okay? Show me a posture of Richard that I adjusted today. Literally, when he first came in, his neck was so far forward, I had to go down like this just to look him in the eyes. His neck was literally stuck this way. I'm like, Rich, what do you do? I sit on the couch, watch TV. Well, show me a posture of somebody sitting on the couch watching TV. Everything that we do is like this, okay? So, over time, we lose that curve. Main difference between normal and phase 1 subluxation is what? Straight A's. Mama? You lose that curve, right? You lose that curve. See that indent right there?
Yeah.
That is what neurologists call that pathological tension, Dustin. That's that disease-causing tension. Listen, if you understand anything in the course of your care here, understand that disease is a process. Right? It's a process. Diabetes doesn't happen overnight. That heart disease and cancer doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, okay? So it starts with the subluxation. There's something that has to start that process. Phase 2 subluxations, problem not, obviously, spine's not even straight up and down. Now it's starting to lean forward. We start to see some arthritis start to develop on the front of the spine, and basically curl looks sharp and jagged right here. The bone is not nice and square. So the interesting thing with phase 2 is not the arthritis, it's that lower neck. See that indent on the spinal cord? See down there? How it's pinching that spinal cord. Well, those are the nerves that go down your arms. They go to your neck. Most importantly, where else do they go? To the heart. And so what do most people have heart attacks? When you're 15 to 25 or when you're 35 to 55? It's not genetic. There's I'm not saying there's no genetic tendencies, but there's a reason why your heart shuts down. It's not just God created a perfect miracle of life and says, okay, my job's done, good luck, 40 years, you're gonna bam. There's a reason why it shuts down, all right? Phase 3 is permanent decay. So those are the people that are no longer with us or they can't get in here to get adjusted as much that I got to do house calls on. And those are the people that have so much arthritis that they literally turn, you ever see those people? My grandma was one of them. Sat in a wheelchair for the last 6 years of her life and like literally she started like this and over time, right, you had to get down and be like, hey grandma, right? Okay, and so those are the people that, I mean, their spine is fused like that. So regardless of where you're at, we need to get your body as normal as your body will let us get it, okay? So if your x-ray looks like a phase 1 subluxation, it's straight up and down, or if your x-ray looks like this, where it's actually leaning forward, what does that mean for you? Life or death?
Yeah.
And I don't say that, please understand my heart, I don't say that out of fear, but rather, Dustin, out of urgency that, you know, I'm 37, I don't have headaches, I don't have back pain, I've been adjusted my entire life, but I know what my x-ray looks like, right? And because I have a job where I'm bent over like this, you better believe that I'm getting checked several times a week, not adjusted, but I get checked a couple times a week. I do my at-home dental roll because I don't want to wait till I have breast cancer to actually start to do something about it. And people will have a lifetime just like, man, don't fix what ain't broke. Let's just keep going, let's just push through, and then all of a sudden, 20 years later, right, I wish I could go back and do something different. Well, let's not wait till we get to that point. I want to show you a couple x-rays so that way it's easier to understand when we're looking at your x-rays in the back. This lady is of, she was, how old? Oh, shoot. Linda?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
It was.
Almost.
There it is.
Linda, don't leave me. I'm just kidding. Linda's my tech person. Stay tuned, Linda. This is a lady, I want to make sure I'm not lying to you, Elizabeth. She's 69 years old when she first came in. So, a couple things with her. She was referred in by her daughter, and she drove over an hour to get here. She lived like north of Willard. And she had so much issues, like everything. And I remember, I will never forget Elizabeth, and her husband's name was Grady. And I will never forget, this was one of my first doctor's reports that I ever gave like a group report. And I used to spend a lot of time going over like the side effects of medication, how more people are dying from like non-steroidal anti-inflammatories than AIDS every year. And I used to spend a lot of time on just the stats because I was like, people need to understand how damaging this is and what they're doing to themselves just without even knowing it. And then I remember she stands up in the back of the room, and I was facing this way, and she stands up and she talks to the group, and she's like, first of all, Dr. Megan, I just want to talk to everybody. She's like, if you've never, and she was talking to you guys, she's like, if you never started taking medication, she said, never start. She's like, because I take 56 meds every day, And she's like, I wake up every day wondering if this is gonna be my last, because she's like, I'm not worried about, you know, the heart disease and all that stuff. She's like, I'm not worried about maybe the conditions why I'm taking the medication. She's like, I know I'm poisoning myself. She's like, I can't even remember why I even started taking it. And so she was just encouraging everybody, like, holy cow, this is waking up in fear every day, losing sleep over the fact that, man, this is literally destroying my health. But then when you look at her x-rays, Elizabeth was referred in because she had lower back pain, and that's why her daughter referred her in. But then I look at her neck, and she's like, Dr. Megan, why are you looking at my neck? I said, well, because all life starts here. You have to understand here. So when you look at her x-rays, is this life or death?
That's pretty close to death.
Pretty close to death. At 69. That's younger than my mom is right now. So here's the thing. This is jaw. Red line is where the spine needs to be at. Black dotted line is where her spine was. How do you think her brain's talking to her body? Not very well. And then I look at her low back x-rays. This is a side view of her low back. So this is a curve in her lower back. What are those? Any ideas?
These speakers.
Pretty darn close. Those are actually a pain stimulator put in her, like, basically her flank. She's like, oh yeah, Dr. Megan, I didn't think it was pertinent for you to understand this, or to know this, but then she would grab her skin around those little metal boxes. The idea was that they would stimulate her nerves into thinking she didn't have pain. But obviously, she's like, but obviously that didn't work, so now I'm stuck with this, that's why I'm here, and I still am in pain. And I'm like, well, holy cow. And then you look at the side view of her low back. Basically, when you're looking at a spine from the side, obviously it needs to have certain curves, but they need to be all lined up in a straight line, okay? So this is like the black line, all lined up. And then when you get down to this bottom one, see how this one is not level with this one. It looks like a little step. You see that? So what's happening, her low back was so bad and it's so subluxated that literally her spine's not even in line, it's actually stretched forward. So it's tensioning out the spinal cord in her lower back, let alone all the damage in her neck. And so I'm like, well, good grief, Elizabeth, no wonder you're on 56 medications every single day. So the thing with her, she's like, I gotta do something different. I can't live like this anymore. And that's pretty much to the point where a lot of people get, Brenda, when they come in to see me, they're like, this is affecting everything. It's affecting my intimacy, it's affecting my work, I feel like everything in my life is going down the tubes. And usually, honestly, it's like worst case, like, I've tried everything else, finally, I'll give you a try. And I'm like, I don't care if we're your first chance at health or your very last resort, Elizabeth, I'm just glad you're here. And with Elizabeth, we saw her 4 days a week. This was a while ago, this is over a decade ago. And we saw her 4 days a week. She drove over 2 hours to get here. And her and her husband. And we took her x-ray then 3 months later. And this is what we're going to do with you too. I don't want to hope you're better, Brian. I want to know your body's doing what it needs to do, that your spine's changing and it's functioning better neurologically. So in 3 months' time, we take another x-ray. And this is what her post x-ray looked like. And so this is a lady who's been subluxated, has so much arthritis that obviously the spine's been that way for decades, okay? But the thing with her is that she still has the loss of a curve, okay? That's not gonna go away overnight. This is a 40-year problem. It's not gonna get corrected in 3 months. But her atlas went from 15 degrees to 20 degrees. So she has 5 degrees less pressure on her brainstem, Brenda, and the cool thing with that is that not only 5 degrees less pressure, let me break that down for you. That means your heart's beating better, that means her lungs are breathing better, that means her kidneys are working better, that means her immune system's function better. Yeah, her hip pain went away, even in spite of surgery failed, drugs failed, everything's failed. And that's why we see results where other places might fail, because you get down to the root cause of why it's even a problem in the first place. She went from 56 drugs every day down to 26 drugs in 3 months. Not because I took her off drugs.
Wow.
Because her body started to heal on the inside. So you knock out the top couple killers in our country. I'm not saying you're gonna live a perfect life. She's always gonna have that arthritis. You're not gonna live a perfect life, but it's a heck of a lot better than the route she was going. Yes or yes?
Yes.
Absolutely. And so with her, thankfully, we've done some technique changes. We do a couple therapies in our office now that we didn't do back then even, that we can get the results even quicker than we did when she first started. So So I'll go over a little bit about what that means for you in just a minute. But this next x-ray is of a lady, Nancy. And you know when sometimes you talk to people and you talk to them, and I adjusted Nancy today even, but this was several years ago too. This was probably over 10 years ago with Nancy, and I love her because you know when you talk to certain people and they're like looking at you, but they're not really there. You're like, that was Nancy. I'm not kidding. Nancy was she was depressed. She was anxious. She had a little kid, Steven, that I adjust still every week. And her husband was like, the reason that she came in the first place, she had migraine headaches and she had carpal tunnel syndrome. And so her husband said her migraine headaches were so bad that she would go into her bedroom and lock herself in a room, just a dark room, because she couldn't stand light, she couldn't stand noise, like everything was affected. So he's like, we have this little 3-year-old. Mom can't even take care of the 3-year-old because she's always in her room. She refused to, she would come out, eat, and go back, and Jerry was like, she lives in her room. And so obviously her life was not where it needs to be, and she was so drugged up on medications that she was that type of person where it's like, do you understand what I'm saying? And so with Nancy's x-ray, this is what her x-ray looked like. So life or death. Death, Dustin. So a couple things are happening with Nancy. Number one, you stretch the nerves that go down the arms. 80% of carpal tunnel syndrome starts in the neck. You got to make sure that life's getting down there in the first place. Yeah, you can have some issues with the wrist, but we want to let's start up here first and make sure that's going. And so with her, you stretch the nerves that go down the arms. That's what's causing a lot of her issues in her hands. But then her top bone is 12 degrees. 12. What does the top bone protect? So what does that mean if your atlas is 12 degrees? Might not be migraines. Might be something else. Might be an immune disorder. Might be a hormone. Might be like, man, I feel I'm just always anxious. I feel shaky. I feel, something's going on. I just can't sleep at night. I just feel like something's not right. Okay? With Nancy, 12-degree atlas. So that's not a good place to be for her. Nancy, again, she's been under care now this was over 10 years ago, and within a few months, Nancy's atlas went from 12 degrees to 28 degrees. I want to be very clear and very transparent. I do not heal. I don't get Nancy off medications. By the way, she ended up weaning herself off the medication. She's like, listen, my doctor's not on board. I got to do this on my own. She got off all her antipsychotic medications, which is an amazing thing because that's a class 2 narcotic. That's dangerous stuff. And they say once you start, it's very difficult to get off. And so with her, she's like, I got to get off this. So she got off all her medications. She started homeschooling that 3-year-old once he started going into school. He graduated just a couple years ago. And then she went back to work. She's like, I can actually she got very involved with like her church and like small groups and all that stuff. She's like, I remember to the point where she's like, I couldn't even concentrate enough to pray. And so with her life is totally different. She actually went back to work when her son graduated. Now her and her husband are making over 6 figures. And it's not about the money because the reality is, it's not about your bank account. Right? Patrick probably was loaded when he died. Not about the bank account. Wouldn't want to trade places with him. Right? But the reality is you start gaining your life back, that, what's the price tag on that for Nancy?
Priceless.
It's priceless. Absolutely. And so with her, I'll tell you, with her, she's probably one of my lead referrals because she's like, listen, this has totally changed my life. She probably sent more people single-handedly than any other person in my clinic, patient-wise, because she's like, I'm a living proof that I know that if I keep living like this, I know where my life is headed. And she's like, I'm living proof that, man, you get the problem corrected. And again, perfect, not perfect after a couple months, but guess what? It didn't happen overnight. All right, but I know that my life is better. And so with Nancy, she's doing awesome. And she's like, man, she's like, you got me for life. I'm like, listen, I don't heal, but the power that made your body heals it. I just got to remove that interference so your body's designed to heal it, do its job. Okay. Last X-ray I want to show you is of a lady, Janet. And Janet, this was just Janet's X-ray. She's been under care now for about a year. And Janet is 65 years old at the time of her X-ray. And Janet was also referred in by her sister She actually has two sisters, both of which they're all three under care. But they're all single, they're all around the same age, and they like to do what sisters do. Like, they like to go shopping, they like travel out of state and go to like outlet malls, and she's like, I have hip pain so much that she's like, it's interfering with, you know, my life. I can't do what I want to do. So her sister's like, hey, just come to my chiropractor, and she's like, but I go to a chiropractor. And she's like, just come to my chiropractor. And so Becky brought Janet in. And Janet, she had hip pain, which would travel down her leg, so she would have some sciatica, Carol. But I took an X-ray of her neck. I'm like, well, here we gotta look at your neck first. She's like, well, wait. She's like, I go to a chiropractor. My chiropractor has never taken any X-rays. And by the way, why are you starting at my neck? She's like, and I said, well, just trust me. I want to start at your neck. And this is what her neck looks like. Just think about it. So this is normal. This is Janet. Is that life or death? Normal? Megan, is this life or death? Death. So Janet also, not only did she have hip pain and sciatica, she was also taking 3 medications all for her heart. I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense, because that means the first one's not working and the second one, so let's do all 3. So when you look at Janet's X-ray, look at that area right here. See how that's lipped up? So this is how the front of the spine needs to look nice and square, and as we get down, see how that's sharp and jagged? Do you see that, right? So the nerves at your lower neck, where do they go? Down your arm, and most importantly, where? To the heart. So I'm like, Janet, okay, hip pain aside, what's this doing to your heart? She's like, it's not good. I'm like, darn right it's not good. To the point where you're currently now taking 3 medications. What's the next step for high blood pressure? What is the next step? What's the next step? It's the heart attack. She's already taken the medications. The next step is the heart attack. I'm like, Jay, you want to wait till the heart attack before, you want to wait till something catastrophic happens before? She's like, but here's the thing, Dr. She's like, I thought I was doing everything that I was taught to. I thought I was doing the right thing. I'm like, thank God she had been going to the chiropractor, but here's the reality, Dustin. I said, how often do you go, like, get checked? Like, just curious, how often? She's like, I go about, 7 or 8 times a year. I'm like, well, thank God. It's better than nothing. But if you were my mom, and I see phase 2 degeneration to the point where your spine is actually trying to fuse itself together, if you were my mom, I'd say, I want to check you every stinking day until we get that corrected. Now, it's not the arthritis I'm worried about. Let's get that range of motion. Let's get that heart functioning better. If you're my mom, that's exactly what I would tell you. And so with her, I said, I'm just curious, why do you go with phase 2 degeneration? I, as a chiropractor, would want to see you a lot more than that. She's like, well, that's what my insurance covers. And she's like, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. Like most of her adult life, she's been doing it. And I said, well, that's pretty good. I mean, that's better than the average person for sure. But here's the thing, is that I said, this is what happens when you only do what your insurance tells you to do. This is what happens. And then pretty soon you're 65 years old. You're like, I've managed pretty good, but now I'm finally able to retire. I don't have a husband to take care of me. I have to make sure, she's like, I want to make sure that I am independent. I have no one to take care of me. She's like, I have to do this. And by the way, Janet, we're not in network with your insurance. She's like, well, then I got to pay for it. And so with Janet, she paid a couple grand just to get this problem fixed, her first year of care. And I said, here's the thing, is that you can keep doing what you're doing, keep going to where your insurance might cover some, but you're not getting the problem fixed. You're taking more medications, and now your life is going in a downward spiral. Well, let me ask you, Janet, this is a problem that's been there for 40 to 50 years based on the amount of degeneration. This is a problem that's been there for that long. You've been going to a chiropractor half of that time. So what's going to happen in another 6 months from now, or even another year, if you don't fix the problem? She's like, Dr. May, like, I have to fix the problem. And so with Janet, she's like, I would never, and now, a year later, she's like, she got off, by the way, she got off 2 of her 3 medications, so we're working on that. But here's the thing, is that, you start making life choices and decisions to fix the problem. And then even with her, and I saw her last week, girl, she's like, I would never go back to that mindset where I'm stuck to only simply do, because she's like, honestly, that's kind of like the victim mindset. I'm only gonna do what I'm allowed to do, and then let the cookie crumble the way it does. No, she's like, I'm taking charge of this. I'm gonna get it under control, and I'm gonna live a life that I've never thought was possible. And that's what we want for you, and that's what we want for her. Okay? And so we might, with your insurance, we might do things that are covered by your insurance, we might do things that aren't covered by your insurance. And either way, listen, when you see that we're a very busy office, you see that we see a ton of kids, it's not because we see rich people. It's not because we see, listen, these people live in your same communities, they have your same jobs, they have your same insurance, right? But we see people, we see families for life, because we make, we'll figure out the finances. We'll make that affordable. I'm not worried about your money, but I am worried about, with her, with Nancy, priceless. There is no option, Janet. There is no option to not get that fixed. Okay, so you have to get that fixed. We just need to figure out how we can do that. Okay? And so let me explain real briefly in closing, let me explain exactly what to expect when you come in on a visit to visit. I know we see a lot of people here. Okay, and so you might be waiting 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, depending on what time that you come. After school, it's busy. Okay, after work, it's busy. And here's the thing, is that usually the length of time that you are here, though, you're doing therapies and stuff that you need to do to help warm your spine up for the adjustment anyway. And so you're not going to be, we get you in and out. There's not a lot of time that you're going to actually spend here at this office. But when you first come in, you're going to sign in on the computers. Then the first thing you're going to do after you sign in is you're going to go back, Dustin, and sit right beside you. Okay, and so those 3 wobble chairs, that's basically going to help warm up the disc space in your spine. That's going to help prepare your spine for a better adjustment. Okay? Then when you're called back, you're going to go back to the adjusting room, and this is the second part, and Ryan, literally the most important part of your care here at this office. The second part of is the adjustment. And I'm telling you right now, I will not spend more than a couple of minutes with you back in that room. If I spend any more than that, Carol, it's a waste of your time. Because I understand my role. I don't heal by spending more time with you. I remove interference and let your body do the healing. It doesn't take long to remove interference and get her a specific scientific chiropractic adjustment, Barb. It doesn't take long to remove that interference. But listen, the healing happens when she leaves. Until she messes it up again. Until we create because it will happen the first few times. Until we create enough momentum where your spine actually becomes strong, where you can actually hold its adjustment. So yeah, you're going to be here, more frequently initially until your spine becomes strong enough where you can actually go 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time between adjustments. Okay? So, and that brings me to my next thing is the home traction. The home traction that's why I love when the spouse is here. That's when you, spouse, keep the wife and husband accountable. That's when they need to make sure they're doing their rehab at home to help, what are you doing between now and your next visit? Well, we need to, I know what a lot of you are doing because I know where you work and I know what you do and I know the school you go to, but the reality is we need to make sure that we're doing things between your adjustments, lifestyle-wise, that's going to help build that momentum. Because in 90 days, we're going to take another x-ray. And I don't want the x-ray to look the exact same. I want to know, hey, this is what, it's not cookie cutter. Your care is not cookie cutter, it's not the same for everyone. It's where were you at when you walk into my front doors. If you waited too long, you're going to be here more often, right? If a baby comes in, might need only maintenance care. Just maintain the healthy spine. If a 7-year-old walks in, it might take a little bit more time, okay? But we want to do what we need to do so in 90 days we actually see those results. So that brings me to my next thing, Carol. I hear, once you start chiropractic, you always have to go. What do you think my response to that is? Yes. Darn right. Well, how long are you going to be healthy?
For a long time.
For life,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, I recommend maintenance care. And so after that first 90 days, we take another x-ray, and I want to see that, I want to see those results. And so my goal is to get you down to once a month, maintenance care. Wouldn't that be awesome? Imagine if everybody in your school, imagine if everybody in Madison right down the street, imagine if every one of those kids get adjusted. Just maintenance care, just keep them healthy. You think the number of antipsychotic medications would be less? You know that every single school shooting has been linked to an antipsychotic drug, every single one of them? So if kids are on less medications, they have less psychotic tendencies, what does that mean for your community? What does it mean for your kids' school when they go to school? Hopefully safer. Absolutely. I pray every day with my kids out loud that, man, that God just placed a hedge of protection about that entire property. 20 years ago, you wouldn't even have to necessarily do that. I mean, pray. Not for that. Help my kid not to get shot in school today. Right? And so that's what, obviously, we want to make sure that, we're moving towards that right direction. In closing, I don't ask a ton from our patients, just a couple things. Number one is that you're here on schedule. I need you here to get the results, okay? Not because I like you, although I do. Everyone, honestly, I'm not saying that simply because to say that, but we want to see the results, and I don't want to waste my time. I don't want you to waste your time if we're really not going to make any results. And so, I'm concerned honestly about two things. Number one, Dustin's my reputation, and number two is your health. So I don't want you to say, well, I went to that chiropractor and I didn't get any results. Well, did you follow the plan, or did you just kind of come in when you want to come in? Because there's a reason why the patients that we see that we're so packed, there's a reason that they're getting the results. There's a reason they're here. And so we want to make sure that there's a procedure that we follow based on where your spine is at, and I want to make sure that we're moving in that right direction. So in 90 days, we take an x-ray, and your spine is, where it needs to be, so that way you can maintain that. I understand, though, life happens, and things come up, and you work over, and you have kids, and schedules, and stuff. I get it. We ask that on the rare occasion you have to miss a visit, please call. I need you to contact the office, so that way Linda or Dawn's not on the phone trying to search you down. Listen, you pay me to keep you accountable, and I get that, okay? But I'm not going to be a babysitting clinic, right? And so I understand, ultimately, health is your responsibility, and if you're 100% all in, I'm 100% all in for her, okay? But I can't care more about your health than you do. And so I just ask that if you happen to miss, just give us a call, shoot us a text, whatever we need to do, and we do what's called a makeup visit. So makeup visits are simply that if you happen to miss a visit, we do a makeup to help keep that momentum going. Because if I say, Brian, I want to see you 10 times in the next 3 months, I don't want to see you 10 times over the next year, because that's what your insurance covers. We want to get over that hump of better in that 3 months, and then you then maintain that, okay? And so I get it, things happen, just give the office a call, we'll do a makeup visit. The third and final thing, and honestly one of the most important things I ask, is this. When you come in, Carol, you have 100% of my attention. When you're back in that adjusting room, it is just me and you, and I'm all in, and I'm super glad that you're in that boat and you're moving towards better health and living. But one of my things that I do ask started when a family came in. Jean was her name, and she was here for several years, and she always had her fiance with her. Fiance for a couple years. His name was Don, and I always asked him, I'm like, hey Don, let's get you checked. Let's just see what's going on. He always drove her, he always drove her. So he was always sitting on the bench, and always I'm like, hey Don, let's get you checked. Let's get you checked. And there's always an excuse why he never wanted to get checked. It's like in between jobs, and didn't have insurance, and it'd take 90 days for that to kick in, and just well, now he got laid off. And there's always a reason, usually revolving around money, why he didn't ever want to get checked. And so I'm like, hey, Donnie, listen, next visit that you bring her in, we're going to check your spine. He's like, okay, fine, Doc, you got me. And he probably, honestly, just got tired of me bugging him, honestly. And I'm like, I will bug the crap out of you. I want to check your spine. What I mean by check is, let's do a posture, and I want to do a scan on it. Let's just see if there's anything going on that might be causing some issues. And so he promised, this is on a Friday, he promised the following week to get checked. And so they left here, they went to go shopping, and they went to Hobby Lobby. He had a massive heart attack. He died in the parking lot of Hobby Lobby. And so I remember that gut feeling, you're just like it broke my heart. Broke my heart. And I remember feeling, Brenda, that I don't know, if he would have let me, if I would have just freaking checked him without him knowing it even.
Yeah.
I can check your posture just by looking at you and just tell you what's going on. But I don't know if I didn't have the guts. I don't know what. I was a new practitioner, but I remember just that gut feeling holy cow, they'll never get married. They're never going to have kids. The future generations that are going to be forever impacted, because now, he's no more. And I remember thinking, there's not going to be another family member that walks out that has no idea. So the third and final thing that I ask is that we check families. Listen, Ryan, you're my focus when you come in. But if I were and am a spouse and have 4 kids at home and have no idea if they're subluxated, well then shame on me, right? It means I'm doing everything for me, and let's hope they're doing okay. And so, you know, within the next 2 weeks, I do ask that we check family members. And Carol, thank you so much for sending your son in already. And I'm proud of you for doing that. Because, you know, the people that I love the most, they're sitting at home waiting for me right now. Okay, and so, you know, family members do not need to start care, but I would love the opportunity to get them checked. And within the next 2 weeks, we do that completely free. And so I will always be asking you, hey, who do you know? Who do you know? Because here's the thing, when you're in that lifeboat and you're, you know, swimming the seas of healthy living, how many people are in that school system, or how many people are in your job, and how many people are go to your church that are like asking for prayer, that are asking for healing, that are asking for the drugs, that are asking for, you know, whatever. They're on a life vest, man. Like, we want to make sure that we're helping other people on that journey towards health. So they don't need to start care, but my gosh, like, we want to check them. So whether they're in-state, out-of-state, or local, we will get them to a chiropractor. People down by you, we'll find them a chiropractor down by you, right? People in California, we'll find them a chiropractor in California, because it has nothing to do with building an office. I don't need any new patients. We're very busy. But people need what we have. And there's other offices in the country that offer what we have. Okay, so we want to make sure that they're getting their nerve system checked as well. Good deal? Okay. So we're going to take you guys back in the order in which you came. We're going to go over your results. It takes you just a few minutes per person. Does not take long. Once you look at your x-rays, you're already very well educated already about, hey, what's at stake and what's going on, and this is what it's going to take to fix it. Okay? Pleasure serving you guys. We'll take you back shortly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll never get on.